My name is Daniel Crow. I'm 61 years old. And this is the story of how my son looked me in the eyes and asked, "What's the point of you anymore?" So I paid off his mortgage and disappeared to Portugal without saying goodbye. If you like real-life stories about family, regret, and people finally choosing themselves, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. There's a moment, as a parent, when you realize your kid doesn't see you as a hero anymore. You don't expect it to be pretty. You expect some eye-rolling, some distance, maybe the occasional jab about getting old. I didn't expect it to sound like a sentence. That sentence. It happened on a Tuesday, which felt wrong. Tuesdays aren't supposed to hold life-changing moments. They're sandwich days between Monday chaos and midweek exhaustion. But that Tuesday slid my entire world sideways. I was standing at my son's kitchen counter in Denver, sleeves rolled up, rinsing coffee cups that weren't mine. The morning light was slipping through the big window above his sink, the one that looked out over the cul-de-sac he was so proud of. His wife, Erin, had already left for work. The kids were at school. It was just me and Mark. I'd been staying with them for 3 weeks, helping with school runs, fixing the broken fence, sitting in the bleachers at soccer practice, cheering for grandchildren who introduced me as grandpa, but didn't really know me yet. We said it was temporary. They called it transition. What it really was. Me, at 61, sleeping in their guest room because my own house had been sold to patch holes no one saw coming. Corporate restructuring. That's what the company called it. An unfortunate but necessary optimization. 34 years with the same manufacturing firm, walking the same halls. Remembering when the first machines were installed and, just like that, the ID badge stopped working. The severance package was neat, clean, cold, plenty of numbers, not much dignity. I told Mark I'd be fine. He told me, "Stay with us until you figure things out." I believed both of us were lying a little. On that Tuesday morning, I cooked breakfast out of habit. Eggs, toast, coffee, 2 mugs, one with sugar, one without. I knew how he took it. I'd watched him do it since he was 15, and pretending to like caffeine because he thought it made him look older. He came downstairs in a hurried shirt and tie mess, one shoe on, the other dangling from his fingers. "Coffee's on the counter," I said. "Toast is in the I see it," he muttered. "No, thank you." That had become common. He grabbed the mug, took a sip, winced. "Too hot." "Sorry," I replied automatically. "I forgot you rush out so fast these days." He didn't laugh. Instead, he dropped his shoe, exhaled sharply, and leaned on the counter in that way that says, "I am exhausted, but Dan T want to talk about it." I turned back to the sink, trying to give him space. "You know," he said suddenly, "Erin and I were talking last night." My shoulders tensed. "Oh, about the situation." The situation. Apparently I had become a situation. "Dad, you've been here almost a month." His tone wasn't angry, just tight, controlled. "We love you. Okay, but this isn't sustainable." I put the last mug on the rack and turned the faucet off. "Sustainable," I repeated quietly. "I've been looking for work. It's just harder at my age." "I know," he said, but his eyes were on the clock, not on me. "It's just, with the kids, and Erin's schedule, and my promotion on the line. There's a lot of pressure. We need stability." "I don't think I'm destabilizing the place by unloading the dishwasher," I said softly. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You know that's not what I mean." I did, but I wanted to hear him say it anyway. "What do you mean then, Mark?" He finally looked at me, really looked, and for a split second, I saw that 15-year-old again, the one who used to ask me to stay a little longer at the park, the one who begged me to clap louder at his games. Then it was gone. "Dad," he hesitated, then said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "What's the point of you being here anymore?" There it was, not yelled, not spat, just spoken, like a fact. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice even. "The point." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're not working, you're hovering, you're rearranging the kitchen, telling the kids stories they don't understand, waking up at 5 o'clock a.m. to sweep a driveway that doesn't need it. It's a lot." I swallowed. "You asked me to come," I reminded him. "I did," he said quickly. "And that was good at first, helpful. But now it's just, I don't know." "What are you doing, Dad? What's the point of you anymore?" The words landed like an unexpected blow. What's the point of you? Not how are you doing? Not what do you want next? Not how can we help? Just, what's the point of you? I stood there for a moment, hands damp, dish towel hanging useless from my fingers. The clock on the microwave ticked. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked, and in the silence, I felt the last 34 years of my life, the life I'd built for him, dissolve into a question I couldn't answer. The microwave clock ticked again. 7:42 a.m., 7 minutes until he left for work. 7 minutes until I decided whether to break or to break free. I set the dish towel down. "Mark," I said quietly, "is that really how you feel?" He didn't answer immediately. His jaw flexed, his eyes darted to the clock, then back to me. "It's not personal," he said finally. "It's just reality. Everyone has a role. Erin and I are building our life. The kids are growing, and you," he gestured vaguely, "you're just stuck." He didn't mean it with cruelty. That almost made it worse. He thought he was being honest. He thought he was doing the responsible thing by pointing it out. I nodded slowly. "I see." He exhaled with relief, as if my calmness meant agreement. "Good. I'm glad you understand. We can help you find a smaller place, something manageable with your severance. And once you get settled, I won't be staying," I said simply. He blinked. "What? Not here," I added. "Not anywhere in Denver." His brows furrowed, confusion swirling. "What do you mean? Where would you?" "I'll figure it out." He laughed under his breath. "Dad, don't be dramatic. You have nowhere to go." I didn't respond, because I had somewhere in mind. Somewhere I'd been quietly researching during late nights, after everyone went to bed. Somewhere sunny, quiet, and far from the question that had gutted me. "What's the point of you anymore?" Mark grabbed his briefcase. "Look, let's talk tonight, okay? I've got a presentation." "No," I interrupted gently. "You said what you needed to say." He froze. His voice softened. "Dad, I didn't mean I know what you meant," I said. "And I heard you." He stepped toward me, suddenly uneasy. "Are you mad?" "Mad," I repeated. I wasn't sure what I felt. A strange mixture of sadness, clarity, and an unexpected calm that felt like stepping outside during the first snowfall. "No," I said. "I'm not mad." He exhaled, relieved. "I'm disappointed." His relief vanished instantly. "Disappointed," he echoed. "You're my son," I said. "I didn't think you saw me as a burden." He opened his mouth, closed it again, searching for justification. "Dad, you're making this bigger than it is." "No," I said gently. "You made it bigger the moment you asked me why I exist under your roof." He flinched. "Good." Sometimes pain was the only way growth began. The garage door rumbled as he grabbed his keys. "Let's talk tonight," he repeated, almost pleading. "I won't be here tonight." That stopped him cold. "What does that mean?" "It means today is my last day." His voice sharpened. "Dad, I'll clean up the guest room before I go." "Dad, stop. I don't want to disrupt your stability," I said, echoing his earlier words. "Wouldn't want to hover." "Dad, please. I'll tell the kids I love them before they get home." "Dad, and I'll leave my key under the mat." Mark's face twisted shock, guilt, fear, all tangled. His mouth moved like he wanted to take everything back, but couldn't form the words. Then the clock beeped. 7:45. He had to leave. He always had to leave. That was the story of our relationship, wasn't it? Me making time, him running out of it. "I'll call you," he said finally. I nodded once. "I know." He hesitated at the door, looking at me as if realizing something too late. "Dad, I love you." I smiled softly. "I love you too." But love wasn't the same as respect, or appreciation, or purpose. He left. The second the door closed behind him, the house fell into a deep, echoing quiet. I stood there for a few long breaths, letting the reality settle. His words still hung in the air like smoke. "What's the point of you anymore?" It stung, but it also clarified something I hadn't allowed myself to consider. Maybe the point of me didn't have to be him. Maybe, after 61 years, I could build a life that wasn't shaped around being needed or useful or convenient. Maybe the point of me could be me. I spent the next few hours cleaning the guest room with meticulous calm. I folded the blankets, dusted the nightstand, and left the bed neatly made. In the closet, I found the sweater I'd worn the day Mark graduated college. Blue, slightly worn, smelling faintly of cedar. I held it for a moment. Then I put it in my suitcase. At 11 a.m., I sat at his kitchen counter, the same place he'd questioned my purpose, and opened my laptop. My email draft was already waiting. The one I'd written at 3 a.m., a week earlier but never sent. Subject: Inquiry long-term stay to Casa da Luz Guest House, Porto, Portugal. Message: hello, I'm interested in a long-term stay beginning this month. Please confirm availability. Daniel Crow. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I thought of my son's words. I thought of the way his eyes had flicked past me that morning, already halfway out the door. I thought of the quiet ache inside my chest. Not anger, not revenge, just a deep understanding. I deserved a life that looked like something more than a shadow in someone else's home. I clicked send. 2 minutes later, the reply came. Yes, we have a room available. Ocean view. Monthly rate applies. We'd love to welcome you. I stared at the message. A room, an ocean, a beginning. I closed the laptop softly. Then I opened my banking app, and with hands that didn't shake, I transferred a payment to my son. Mortgage balance $120 paid in full. No note, no explanation, just a final gift. The last act of a father who had finally decided that giving didn't mean staying. I took my suitcase, placed my key under the mat, and stepped outside. The sky was clear. The air was crisp. I felt something I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Purpose. Not the purpose Mark wanted me to have, my own. I locked the door behind me and walked away. When I stepped out onto the porch, suitcase in hand, the neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. It felt like the world was holding its breath, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel rushed to catch up with it. I booked a rideshare to the airport. No return date, no forwarding address, just a one-way ticket I hadn't told anyone about. As the car pulled away from my son's house, I looked back only once. The curtains were still. The lawn was perfectly trimmed, the driveway empty. Everything looked peaceful. And yet I knew I had just detonated the quietest, most necessary explosion of my life. 3 hours later, I was sitting in the airport terminal, boarding pass printed, passport tucked into the side of my jacket, when my phone buzzed. It was Mark. Dad, where are you? I didn't reply. 30 seconds later, another message. Did you leave the house? The kid said your room was empty. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't doing this to punish him. I wasn't doing it for dramatic effect. I was doing it because staying would have slowly erased me. Then another text. Dad, we need to talk. Please. A minute later, a call. Then another. Then a third. I silenced the phone and slipped it into my pocket. For decades, I had always answered when he needed help, when he needed money, when he needed a babysitter, when he needed anything. Not anymore. The loudspeaker chimed, calling passengers to board. I stood up, feeling that strange mixture of fear and freedom swelling inside me. Before stepping onto the jet bridge, I turned my phone off completely, and for the first time in years, I chose silence. Meanwhile, back in Denver, I learned what happened next through a series of messages from my daughter-in-law, Erin, some confused, some frantic, some heartbreaking. At 3:30 p.m., Mark came home early from work. He walked into a house that smelled like coffee and saw that the guest room was spotless. The bed made, closet empty, suitcase gone. What he didn't see was the mortgage statement sitting on the counter, until he did. Erin said she heard him laugh at first, thinking it was some kind of joke. Then the laugh cracked. It turned into a gasp. Then, silence. He saw the numbers. Mortgage balance, paid in full. No note, no explanation. Just a father walking out quietly after being told he no longer had a place in his own son's life. Erin told me he sat at the kitchen counter for almost an hour without moving, just staring at the paper. Then he called every friend, every relative, every airport he could think of. He asked, "Have you seen him? Did he come to you? Did he say anything to anyone?" Every answer was the same, no. And with each no, something inside him began to unravel, the part that believed parents were permanent. The part that assumed I'd always be waiting, sweeping driveways at dawn, making coffee he didn't thank me for. Finally, Erin called me. I had landed in New York for my layover when I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls, 23 texts, 3 voicemails, and 1 message from Erin. "Please, can we talk? Mark is falling apart." My chest tightened, but not out of guilt. It was the ache of being needed only in a crisis. I called her back. She answered on the first ring. "Daniel." "Oh, thank God, Daniel. He's been a mess. He came home, saw the house empty, saw the mortgage. He didn't know what to do. He's scared." "Scared of what?" I asked. "Of losing you." I closed my eyes. "He didn't seem scared this morning," I said quietly. "That's because he didn't think you'd ever leave." A pause. A long one. Then she said something that hit deeper than anything Mark had said. He thought your love meant staying, no matter how he treated you. I rubbed my forehead. Erin, he asked me what the point of me was. She sucked in a breath. I know, she whispered. He told me, and he regrets it. Daniel, he regrets it so much, he can barely look at himself. It wasn't anger, I said. It was honesty. And that honesty forced me to look at my life too. What are you going to do? She asked softly. I looked at the boarding sign, Porter. Boarding son. I'm choosing myself for once, I said. Does that mean you won't talk to him? It means, I said carefully, he's going to have to learn that I'm not endless. Suddenly, I heard a sound behind Erin, a choked sob, a scrape of a chair, a voice cracked, scared, familiar. Dad, a whisper. Dad, please don't go. She must have put me on speaker. I didn't speak. If I did, I might stay. Dad, he said again, his voice thick. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't. I need you. The kids need you. Please tell me where you are. I closed my eyes tightly. Then, Mark, I said, I love you. A gasp of relief on his end. But this time, my voice shook. I have to love myself too. Dad, I'm safe, I said. I'm okay. And when I'm ready to talk again, I will. But not today. There was a long pause. Then the sound of him breaking into tears. Real tears. The kind he didn't cry as a child. The kind he didn't cry at his wedding. The kind he didn't cry when he became a father. Dad, he whispered, please don't disappear. But I had already made my choice. I'm not disappearing, I said gently. I'm starting over. I heard him suck in a breath like the world had tilted beneath him. Goodbye, Mark. Dad. I hung up. Then I boarded the plane. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. For myself. This story shows how important it is to value ourselves and set boundaries, even with the people we love most. Sometimes, stepping away is the only way to be seen. If you've ever felt like this, or know someone who has, please share this story. It might be the message they need to hear. Thanks for watching, and remember to take care of yourselves. Follow 4 more stories that make you think. When the plane lifted off the ground, Denver shrinking beneath the clouds, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Weightlessness. It wasn't freedom, not exactly. Freedom feels wild, reckless, loud. This was quieter, steadier. It was like loosening a knot I'd been slowly tightening around my own throat for years. I wasn't running away from my life. I was walking toward something new. Portugal greeted me with sun-warmed air and a kind of calmness I didn't know a place could hold. I chose Porto, with its terracotta rooftops, soft ocean winds, and streets that curved like they'd been shaped by generations of stories. It felt like stepping into a life I didn't realize I was allowed to dream about. The guest house, Casa da Luz, sat on a hill overlooking the Douro River. It had white walls, blue tiles, and a balcony that smelled faintly of citrus. When I checked in, the owner, a woman named Sophia, with kind eyes and silver hair pulled into a long braid, looked at me like she understood something without me saying a single word. You're staying long? She asked, her Portuguese accent gentle and warm. I took a breath. Yes, I said. A long time. She smiled, a real, genuine smile. Then, welcome home. Days in Porto became simple. I started a new routine. Morning walks along the river. Coffee at a small cafe where the barista learned my name by the 3rd day. Late afternoons were spent reading on my balcony, the ocean breeze flipping the pages for me. There was no one rushing me, no one needing me, no one looking at me like I was a question they didn't want to answer. For the first time in my life, I learned what it meant to wake up without feeling behind, without feeling like I had to earn my place in the world every single day. I didn't realize how exhausting that had been until I wasn't doing it anymore. But peace has a funny way of making the pain sharper at first, before it soothes it. One evening, after a long walk through the historic Ribera district, I returned to my room to find an email from my son, Mark. It wasn't long. No emotional pleas, no long paragraphs, just 3 sentences. Dad, I'm glad you're safe. Please tell me how you are when you're ready. Mark, it stung. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. He was trying. For maybe the first time since he became old enough to see his parents as people instead of just roles. I didn't reply, not yet. The wound was still too fresh, the echo of his question still lingering in my mind. What's the point of view anymore? Healing wasn't like flipping a switch. I was learning that healing is a slow, steady tide. 2 weeks passed before I got another call. It wasn't from Mark. It was from his wife, my daughter-in-law Erin. I didn't answer at first, but she called again and again. On the third try, I finally picked up. "Daniel," she said, her voice shaking with relief. "Thank you for picking up." I leaned on the balcony railing, watching the last golden light of the day bleed across the river. "How are things there?" I asked, my voice steady. Her breath hitched. "He's not okay." My stomach tightened instantly. "What do you mean?" "He's trying," she said softly. "He's been going to work, taking the kids to school, doing everything he should. But he's broken, Daniel, completely broken." I closed my eyes, the image of my son's face flashing in my mind. "Erin," I started, but she cut me off. "Let me finish," she whispered. "You leaving didn't just hurt him, it woke him up." I stayed silent, listening to the distant sound of the city. "He told me," she continued, "that he didn't realize he was being so unkind, that he didn't hear himself. He said he thought you would always endure, that you would always stay." "That's the problem," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He thought my love meant permanence, no matter what." "I know," she replied quietly, "but he's trying to change, and he's terrified he won't get the chance to show you." There was a long pause. Then she said something that hit me harder than anything else. "Daniel, he carries the mortgage statement around with him, everywhere." I swallowed hard, a lump forming in my throat. "He says it's a reminder," she added, her voice thick with emotion. "A reminder of your love, and his failure." Both. My throat tightened. I didn't want to feel this. Not yet. But her words cracked something open inside me. Erin cleared her throat. "The kids ask about you. They miss you. They think you're on a big adventure. They want to know when you'll send pictures." I let out a shaky exhale. "I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking," she said gently. Before hanging up, she added one more thing. "He's going to write to you. A real letter. Not a text, not something rushed. He wants to say everything he never did." A week later, Sophia, the guest house owner, knocked on my door. She was holding a thick envelope with US stamps covering the corner. "From America," she smiled, handing it to me. My heart thudded against my ribs. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable. "Mark." I took the letter out to the balcony, sat in my usual chair, and listened to the waves crash softly below. Then, I opened it. The first line destroyed me. "Dad, I don't know how to fix this, but I know I need to start by admitting I broke something." He wrote about childhood memories I didn't even know he still held on to. He wrote about the pressure he felt, the stress of his job, his own deep-seated fears about becoming the man he thought he needed to be. But the part that truly broke through my defenses was this: "When I asked you that terrible question, I wasn't asking about your purpose. I was terrified of my own. And I took it out on you." I closed my eyes, letting the warm Portuguese wind dry tears I didn't expect to shed. The letter ended with words that offered everything and demanded nothing. "If you never come back, I'll accept it. If you need time, I'll wait. But please know this: you are the point, Dad. You always were." I just couldn't see it through the noise of my own life. There was no manipulation, no pressure, just truth. And the truth, spoken finally, after so long, felt like a bridge. It wasn't a demand to cross it. It was just a possibility. But I didn't pack my bags, not yet. My healing was still happening, and Portugal had only just begun to teach me who I was when I was NT being needed by anyone else. Tomorrow, I would decide what came next. But for tonight, I was just a man on a balcony, listening to the ocean, feeling the weight of the world finally begin to lift. The morning after I read Mark's letter, I walked down to the pier in Faias do Douro, the part of Porto where the river meets the Atlantic. Fishermen were pulling nets from the water, waves crashed against the stone breakers, and the lighthouse blinked steadily, patient and unbothered by time. I stood there with the letter folded in my pocket, feeling the wind press against my coat. I had left the United States with nothing but a suitcase and a weight in my chest heavier than I knew how to name. Now, standing by the ocean, that weight felt different. Not gone, but transformed. This wasn't an escape anymore. This was a rebirth. Back at the guest house, Sophia, the owner, handed me her phone. "For you," she said with a gentle smile. I frowned. "Who is it?" She just winked. "Someone who sounds nervous." I took the phone. "Dad." Mark's voice cracked immediately. He sounded so young, younger than I remembered. I didn't speak at first. Sometimes silence can say more than words ever could. "I'm in Portugal," he said softly. My breath caught in my throat. You're what? He laughed quietly, a shaky, embarrassed sound. I took a flight last night, Erin insisted. She said if I wanted to fix things, I needed to meet you where you are, not wait for you to come back to me. I pressed my hand to my forehead, trying to process it. Mark, you shouldn't have done that. I know, he said, but I needed to. There was a pause. Then he added, I'm standing outside Casa da Luz right now. My heart thumped hard against my ribs. Just then, Sophia poked her head into my doorway and whispered, he's downstairs. Very emotional. When I stepped onto the stone steps of the guest house, I saw him. Mark. He was wearing the same work coat, had the same tired eyes, but there was something different in his face. Humility. The real thing, not the performative kind. He walked toward me slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal he didn't want to startle. Dad, he said softly. Mark, I answered. His eyes glossed over instantly. He looked down, exhaling a trembling breath. I'm sorry. 2 small words, but they were poured from a place he had never opened before. I said something unforgivable, he continued, his voice heavy. Not because of who you are, but because of who I was becoming. I stayed quiet, letting him speak, letting him finally unload what he'd been carrying. I treated you like you were in the way, like you were an obligation. When you were, his voice broke completely. You were the one person who never walked away from me. My throat tightened, and when you finally did, he blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. It felt like losing a part of myself I didn't realize I depended on. A gull cried overhead, and waves hit the stone wall behind us, but all I could hear was my son's voice, cracking open truths he'd avoided for years. I was wrong, Dad. In every way a son can be wrong. He wiped his eyes. You didn't deserve to feel like you had no purpose. I stepped closer to him. Then what do you think the point of me is now? Mark. He swallowed hard. To live, he said quietly. To be happy. To be free. To be you. Not what I expect. Not what the world demands. Just you. My eyes stung not from weakness, but from release. Finally, a release. But I knew the truth. If I simply went home with him, everything could slip back into the old ways. Patterns repeat. Comfort becomes a habit. Old wounds turn into furniture that people stop noticing. I needed him to understand something deeper. Mark, I said gently, I love you, but I can't return as the man I was before. He nodded immediately, without hesitation. I know, you shouldn't, and I won't live in your home again. I know, he whispered, and I won't be the emergency plan you keep in the guest room. He winced at that, a flash of pain in his eyes. I know, I won't exist in your life, only in second-hand moments, squeezed between your meetings and responsibilities. He stepped closer then, tears streaming freely down his face. You won't, he promised, not anymore. A long silence settled between us. It wasn't painful or awkward, it was understanding. Finally, I took a slow, deep breath. I'm staying in Portugal for a while. I said, I have more healing to do. He nodded again. I'll support that. You can visit, I added. On my terms. He let out a breath that sounded like relief and guilt and hope all tangled together. Then I will, he said. As often as you'll let me. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Once a month, I said, a small smile forming on my face. And you're buying dinner. He laughed, the first genuine, light-hearted laugh I'd heard from him in years. Dear, but the biggest shift came right after. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. What's this? I asked. My purpose list, he said. A therapist told me to write down the people and things that give my life meaning. He opened the notebook to the first page. My name was written at the top. Number 1. Dad, the man I want to be more like. The breath left my lungs in a rush. I don't deserve that, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Then let me earn it, he replied, his eyes full of determination. We spent the rest of the afternoon walking the winding streets of Porto. There was no tension, no heaviness between us, just 2 men trying to learn each other again. For the first time, he asked about my dreams, not my responsibilities, not my usefulness, my dreams. I told him about the art class I wanted to take, the Portuguese I wanted to learn, the small apartment I hoped to rent by the ocean. And he listened. He truly listened. As the sun dipped low over the city, he said, Dad, I want you to have a life that doesn't revolve around me. I want to be in your life because you want me there, not because you need a place to stay. Something warm and painful and beautiful bloomed in my chest. Thank you, I said. That means everything. And it did. So, The final decision was simple. I didn't go back to the United States. Not yet. I stayed in Portugal, not hiding, not hurting, healing. Mark flew home a day later, after promising he'd return soon, and that things would be different. And this time, I believed him. Not because he promised, but because I saw the man he was trying to become. The point of me was never to be useful, never to be convenient, never to stand quietly in a corner until I was needed. The point of me is to live a life that feels like my own, and now, I finally am. Thanks for watching.